To start with the whole process of beekeeping, where it started, how it started. See, honey has been there with people right from a very long period of time. Those days, it used to be honey collected from the wild. Now it was all honey hunting. So they used to just go chase out the bees, take out the honey, and consume it. That was the way it was going on. Along with that, they also discovered a few other things that, how these bee colonies, where they are. Some of them are on the rocks, some of them are there in cavities, tree cavities, etc. So slowly, people started understanding how these bees work. And from there, they started small things like, keeping pots, keeping schools, etc. to keep honeybees in around their farms as and when the progress happened. And then the biggest difference between modern beekeeping and honey hunting is there the bees are killed. In the sense, they smoke, they put fire or something like that, they cut out brood to harvest honey. In beekeeping, what happens, we don't kill any bees at all. So it is a very sustainable way of keeping honeybees, producing honey without killing them. And it's a very ethical way of producing honey. So all this started, the modern beekeeping as we know it today, it all started in the last 2 centuries. One, the understanding of the behavior of bees, understanding of the honeybee colony as such, how it functions, and the introduction of various equipment like, a honey extractor and movable frames, bee hive, that's basically a bee box and things like that. So, and the other important thing that we all miss out is, in India and in Africa, right from those days, honey has been used to produce wine. That is also called Madira here. There in Africa, they use some roots to produce wine out of it. Anyway, that is one part of it. So it was a very natural sweetener. They used to produce wax out of it, which was used in medicines and things like that, and also for consumption as honey. And then when you are talking about the bees as such, when I said, they had a better understanding of bees. So when you're talking about understanding of bees, I would like to explain to you what is a bee colony. See, it is a large group of insects. We call them as social insects. Now, it's a very large group of insects which has essentially one queen. Okay, this queen works like the prime minister of a country. There has got to be only one prime minister. Like that, there will be one honeybee queen in every colony. So she is the mother of all the other workers, what we call them. It's these workers who go collect honey from flowers, bring them, store them, thicken them, So this queen is the mother insect that lays eggs. It lays thousands of eggs in a day, and these become larvae. Then from larvae they pupate, and then they will, the honeybee as we see it with wings and legs and everything, they come out. The moment these honeybees come out, the first thing they do is, start cleaning up their own cells, and they have their division of labor. Once the different age groups of honeybees, they perform different activities inside the honeybee colony, and they totally function as a single. They don't work as separate individual insects. It's one for all for one. The honeybees, they work like that. So probably if you were to look around, I'm sure you would have also seen such similar insects. One, you would have seen ants, other termites. They are also social insects. They also work in a group. And the honeybees are also social insects, very well, highly organized social insects. And the way they perform is in a group. And another thing that what they also discovered was that, the different age groups, they also produce pollen, collect pollen, nectar, everything. So now I will tell you about the different species of honeybees in our country. We have 3 native species. One is Apis dorsata, Apis cerana, and Apis florea, 3 different species. I'm sure you would have seen Apis dorsata. the ones that are there on buildings. I'm sure all of you have seen it. Is it not? So
Yes, yes.
that is the one that is called Apis dorsata, the largest of them. And Apis cerana indica is generally found in tree cavities or in rocky areas in some small holes and things like that, or in ant hills, for example. Anything that is, where it has got, it looks like a nest, a covered nest. The Apis florea is a small, tiny bee. It's the smallest of them, which you can see in various bushes, other plants and things like that. On a small twig, it would have built a single comb and nest. It doesn't produce a lot of honey. But otherwise, traditionally, Apis dorsata was the one that was hunted down for huge quantities of honey. In fact, Palani Hills and our Western Ghats, there are some places that's called, Jainakal Gudda, for example. The word itself is like that. Probably there are lots of honeybees there. So they used to build it on rocks there. In places like Ellapura and all that, in one tree, there are something like 100, 200 honeybee colonies nesting in that tree. That kind of trees will be there. So anyway, that is one part of it. And then now we have something called Apis mellifera. It is an exotic variety, basically an European honeybee. It was introduced into this country by the British, and it stayed on for a while without making a big impact. But about 3-4 decades back in Punjab, they started popularizing it. So that has also now taken up a large share of honey production, is now predominantly by the mellifera colonies. Now, earlier, the traditional areas of beekeeping was Karnataka, Kerala. In fact, it started in Kerala. Father Newton, he was the person who brought in the Newton type hive. And the first beekeeping as such, as we know it today, was in Kerala with his introduction of the Newton hive. It started in Kerala, subsequently spread very well in Karnataka and parts of Jammu and Kashmir. These were the traditional states that were producing large quantities of honey. But after the mellifera bees were popularized, the northern plains today are producing tons and tons and tons of honey. In fact, we are now exporting a huge quantity of honey to various countries like Germany, US, Dubai, etc. And these Italian bees, as we call them, are European bees, are golden bees, mellifera bees. They do very well on exotic flowers like the sunflower also. Like, sunflower, our Indian bees don't work on it. Only the dorsata bees work on it. Whereas the mellifera bees work beautifully on it. So large quantities of honey is being produced in northern parts of the country from Apis mellifera. In southern parts, the number one state producing the largest quantity of honey using Apis cerana indica is Kerala. And most of it comes from rubber. Rubber plantations, what happens, it's not honey as such, it is honeydew. In January, end of January, when the fresh shoots start, leaf shoots start, there is a node at the bottom of the leaf where, honeydew oozes out. These bees go and collect that and store, because, unlike a flower, it doesn't have to do a lot of work. Large quantities of honeydew is available, and these bees collect about 10 to 12 kgs of honey in that season. So that is Kerala, parts of South Canara, little of Shimoga, that builds, wherever the rubber plantations are. But traditionally, Coorg and other such areas were from flowers. From there, the season starts in March, goes on till May, June. So as the monsoons come, then almost across India, the honey flow will stop because there will be so much of rain, the bees will not be able to go out and collect honey, or the crops will not be there. Unless in some areas where there is a crop, they might produce a little bit of honey. So from the states that were producing large quantities of honey, being these southern states, to states that did not know the use or production of honey, where people used to be scared of honeybees, They have now become the number one people. In fact, you'll be very surprised to know that Rajasthan today is the country's largest producer of honey. Because the parts of Ganganagar and that belt, they produce so much of mustard. They get various seasons, mustard season and wild flower season, etc. So other thing that you need to keep in mind is that these Italian bees in those belts are thriving very well because they do not have any natural predators. Whereas in south, we have a number of predators. We have got something called bee eaters because these are traditional beekeeping areas. So the predators are also there. So when we bring in these mellifera colonies from north and we try producing honey here, the problem with this the bee eaters. These are a big menace. So it has not been a very grand success as such in south. Some parts it's okay. It takes a lot of rigor to manage them here. Whereas in north it's very comfortable. So and when we look at it, when we're talking so much about beekeeping, why beekeeping? What is the importance of beekeeping? See, beekeeping today is very important because half the food that we eat today are directly related to pollination services produced by these honeybees. You take, say, crops like apples, crops like coffee, crops like most of the citrus crops, sunflower, a lot of them, almost half of what we consume today, other than cereal grains, they're all directly related to pollination. I mean, the yields are directly related to pollination. Now, better pollinated crops or areas will give higher yields. And those areas that do not have adequate pollination, the yields are very low. So even for the government of India, as a nation of people, we need, because we don't have any more land to produce more. Whatever little land we have to produce with that higher yields. So beekeeping is a very important part. Its honey is just a minor produce in the grand scheme of things. For us and for the common people, it is honey. But in the grand scheme of things, honey is a minor output. It is pollination services that are the most important thing. And then when you consider it, what are the problems that we are facing in beekeeping? I mean, or apiculture, what we call it. One of the biggest problem that we are seeing is, pesticides. Now pesticide usage has become so rampant that left, right, center, when the bees are there in the peak flowering season, it is one, the farmers do not have adequate knowledge. Two, they do not even know the importance of honeybees and their pollination services that they are giving. So in the peak flowering, for example, in crops like red gram, togri or arhar, when the peak flowering is there, they continue spraying it. And all the honeybees that are there pollinating those crops, they all get washed out. So that is one of the biggest killer, pesticides. Then the other thing that has become a big problem is sustainability of bees because of monoculture, inadequate floral availability in every area, just to sustain, at least to sustain, because there might be a lot of nectar flow in some at one point of time, but in another point of time there will be nothing. So it is this period of dearth or shortage that we need to have some control of. So you should have something where through the year a little of something is available. If that could be done by so using different varieties of trees in social forestry, small allowing some bushes as right from the farmer level, that kind of education has to be there where they allow some little weeds in some corner of their plot wherein that helps sustain these honeybees, or have one or two trees of plants like your Singapore cherry tree with flowers throughout the year, or honeysuckle plants, anything like that. They are all small things, but they play a very important role in helping these honeybees in surviving. And of course, the other challenge is new diseases. We have now a pandemic. So also about 25 years back there was one disease that almost wiped out the beekeeping industry in South India. That was called the Thai-Sacbrood disease. So it was a viral disease. It spread. It came from the north, and basically Thai-Sacbrood came from Thailand. And it spread across the country, wiped out almost 95% of the colonies. And then slowly now it has made a comeback. Now slowly the bees have got immunity and they've come back. So this is another important thing. This is not in our control, the disease part of it, but at least pesticides, managing flora, that we have adequate control. So now this is just a basic introduction that I have got now. When it comes to beekeeping as such, whether how sustainable is it, for whom is it? See, beekeeping has always been a subsidiary industry along with other activities in a farm or in a plantation or something. People used to keep 2 boxes, 5 boxes, 10 boxes, depending upon their land or surrounding area. So it was a subsidiary income. Then very few people used to take it up as a commercial activity. I was one. I had a lot of colonies. So I used to migrate or I used to manage them exclusively, only keeping bees for honey production. And that was the income for me. So also there are so many other people who solely depend on this as an income. But that is different, and the subsidiary beekeeping is different. A large portion of honey being produced in our hill areas, at least in Karnataka, Kerala, and Maharashtra, Andhra, and all that, is from subsidiary beekeeping. Only in Kerala, yes, there is also an equally good number of commercial beekeepers are there who produce predominantly rubber honey. They work for that season. They produce about 15 kgs of honey in the rubber season, and that's it. The rest of the period, they will just be managing the colonies to survive through the year. So, whereas in our coffee plantations or in our North Canara and such other areas, they manage it along with their other garden activities, so that they are available for pollination, and they also produce some little bit of honey. So that is why we have got so many honey societies also. We got Virajpet Society, Puttur Society, Sakleshpur Society. It is a well organized setup that we have here. They which take care of these people, they take care of the marketing part of the honey that is being produced. So when it comes to this, whether it can be taken up as a completely commercial activity, yes, possible. Whether it's a subsidiary, yes, possible. Whether it can be done by young people, old people, yes, possible. Because unlike other animal rearing, here you don't have to clean it, you don't have to wash it, you don't have to do too much of activity. And it's not a very laborious work, where you have to do it as a subsidiary. For example, I've kept honeybees here in my apartment itself. I just got 2 colonies there. It's a small job. It doesn't, your hands don't become dirty. Nothing. Yes, they do sting. That is one thing that you should be ready for. But otherwise, it doesn't ask you for water. It doesn't ask you for cleaning up. It doesn't ask you for anything else. A hive is everything that you give it. Once you give it, that's it. They come in, they go out, they manage themselves. Very little work, very interesting work. So this is I've given you a small picture about the beekeeping part and anything like that. And when you talk about honey, there are so many different kinds of honey that we produce. So you might be thinking, what is this jamun honey? What is this lychee honey? What is this eucalyptus honey? Or what is this rubber honey? I was talking to you about rubber honey. See, when you give it a different name, they are called unifloral honeys. What is this unifloral honey is, when you are able to produce honey in a location predominantly from a single flower, majorly from a single flower, then it is called unifloral honey. And how is it possible for you to produce that kind of unifloral honeys? Let's assume I am a beekeeper. I take my bees and put it in a citrus orchard. So, and the citrus flowers are in bloom. So all the honey that my bees will be producing will be predominantly from the citrus flowers. Let's say coffee. So like that, different, eucalyptus, if I put it in a eucalyptus grove, it will be eucalyptus. So this is how we can produce different floral honeys, all unifloral honeys. So such kind of thing is also a possibility, and there can be premium on different kinds of honey. There is one honey called the golden soapnut honey, Antualatuppa, which sells at 1,000 rupees plus per kilo. And jamun honey and all sells for minimum 500-600 rupees. Good quality ones, they sell for minimum 500-600 rupees. Like that, producing unifloral honeys has its own edge and it has its own market. So different kinds of honey also can be produced and sold. And the little bee also produces honey. Some people do collect it. Then the Apis dorsata honey is also being produced. That's also collected and sold. Predominantly, they are squeezed. Because it is squeezed, it will be having a little bit of cloudiness. Clean apiary honey will be very crystal clear, very neat, and bees wouldn't have died and things like that. So this is just about the honey. Is there anything else that you would like to ask me about honey or beekeeping or anything?
Sir, this is Venkat here. Can
Yeah.
I start?
Yeah, please tell me, sir.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. First of all, I would like to compliment you, Mr. Santosh, for this phenomenal information we received from you on
Thank you.
beekeeping.
Mm.
And your English is immaculate. I really wanted to compliment you for that. So it
Thank you,
was a
sir. Thank you.
fantastic talk. My question would be around, beekeeping as a supplementary income.
Yes.
If this is something that we help our farmers or people from our community to develop this.
Yes.
Typically, if somebody has the space, he has an acre of land and he has the space to have about 4 or 5 colonies.
Okay.
How much does he stand to make?
I'll tell you. First and foremost, sir, you don't need to have 1 acre of land to keep 4 colonies, 5 colonies. It's not like that. It is not your own land. It is not a sheep or a goat that will graze only within your compound. Honeybees need a much larger area. So it is not about that 1 acre of plantation. It has to be what are the kind of trees around that area. They see the Apis serrana indica, for example. It can fly up to 1.25, 1.5 kilometer almost. That is its range, flight range. We call it. If you talk about dorsata bees, the rock bees that is on the building and all, they go till 6 kilometers. So these bees, they don't collect just honey and pollen and things like that in just that 1 acre. So the space required is very small. But what has to be a critical thing in assessing the number of colonies that can be kept in an area is what is the flora around the area in the half a kilometer radius or 3/4 kilometer radius. That decides how many can be kept in a particular plot. 1. 2. Always I suggest that they keep 2 honeybee colonies, not less to start with, and not more also. And then subsequently, if you produce a lot of honey, you can go for the next level. Generally, what you can produce in a given area is somewhere around 2 to 5 kilos if you are talking about stationary beekeeping without doing too much of management, very little management. 2 to 5 kilos is the average. You might not produce anything also if your management is very bad or if there is not adequate flora around your plot. If you say like in places like our belt, Hiriyur belt, it's a very dry belt. So the colony would have shrunk, they wouldn't have got adequate nectar, pollen if it is not managed. They would have shrunk, they would have gone down in size, the population will be very low. For them, when the flora is available, to first grow to a sustainable level and then to produce extra to stock up. So by which time the season would have got over. So one, management, what a honeybee colony can produce is directly related to management, 2, the surrounding flora that is available, and 3, the weather and such other conditions. So on an average across the state, if you were to say, when you take about thousands of colonies on an average, if you take per box, you can take a thumb rule as 5 kilos is your average.
Got it, sir. Got it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sir, since the source is, there are a variety of sources from where this bee kind of
Yes.
draws these things.
Yes.
Does the taste of the honey made vary?
100%. See, it is like this.
So how do you maintain the consistency in?
You cannot. It's a natural product. There's nothing you can do with honey. If you try to meddle with it, then it is no longer honey.
Single malts.
So you have to consume it. See, for example, eucalyptus honey. It will have that brownish color. It has got a different kind of smell, a different kind of taste. Then when you come to say, lychee, that has a different color flavor. If you say jamun, it has a different color flavor. Then, the typical Kuru honey, which is so popular, that has got a light yellow color, very good aroma and things like that, And there are some honey like, pongemi honey, honge, karanja, that is, what do you call that? They produce oil out of or biodiesel and all that. That karanja, it has no smell, but it has got a very good taste. So why should you, instead of taking so much of variety and enjoying it at different seasons, why should you have a single, one flat taste? Maybe at the most you could blend different honeys and keep, manage the flavor and color and everything in a single way. But artificially you cannot do anything. You can neither remove nor add anything to it. The moment you do that, then it is no longer honey.
So is it like the sing?
Sirsi and Malnad area, a good area
Very good.
for bee.
Sirsi,
for honey.
Malnad, yeah, they're very good. Our Coorg is very good. Chikmagalur, parts of Chikmagalur are very good. See, why Sirsi today, North Canada is so good? It's still pristine. We have finished off a lot of the forests in our Coorg and Chikmagalur belt. It's all gone into silver oak and that kind of monoculture. So that is why here, from what it was to what it is now, is very different. Sirsi is still, raw. It is still green. In the sense, a lot of native trees are there. So that high quality honey that we call it, good aroma, good taste, that kind of honey is still being produced there. So for example, the typical Kuru honey that we all hear of, Kuru honey, it comes from epiphyte. Epiphyte is a plant that grows on another tree or anything like that. It's called Scaphlora anus. Bettu mara they call it. That when it flowers, light yellow, honey is produced from that. The smell so good, you open a bottle in one corner of the room, in the other corner you will know, oh, somebody has opened a honey bottle here. That kind of good aroma will be there. Good taste, very good taste. Now what has happened? They have removed all those trees because of the topping that they do for the coffee plantation. So where do you get that kind of honey now? It's become a rarity. So Sirsi, it is very good because it still has that native trees. So managing that, keeping that variety of trees in every belt is very important. Recognizing it and, on roadsides or on the fencing side, if you grow it, it will be good for sustainable beekeeping.
Mr. Santosh, good evening. This is Suri here.
Good evening,
What
sir.
you said just now was honey to the ears of Sudhakar and myself,
Yes,
because the two of us are trying to lead a project to initiate some beekeeping for some of the tribal people in the Yellapur Sirsi belt.
Okay.
And so that sounds very, very interesting and encouraging. That it's a good region.
Yellapur is a little drier belt.
Right.
Management, they can do it. Yellapur is a little dry belt.
We are doing it along with the Rotary Club at Sirsi. So I suppose, we will, of course, engage there. Then we came across, we were referred to a phrase called royal jelly, which is another very high premium
byproduct.
Product, I believe, but which, comes only once in a couple of years. I don't know exactly what.
It's not like that. I'll explain. Let me explain it to you. See, all the workers, they're all females. The colony predominantly is made up of females. Only are males. That is a few hundreds of them. Okay. The queen is also a female. The worker are also female. So they all come from basically one stock. That is from the egg.
Right.
For all fertilized eggs become females. Unfertilized eggs become drones. So these fertilized eggs, after they hatch in 3 days. After they hatch, the first 2 days when they're very young larvae, they're also fed with royal jelly. And royal jelly is a food that is produced in the heads of young honeybees in a gland there, hypopharyngeal gland. So it is produced there. So first 2 days they feed it, and subsequently after that they feed a mixture of royal jelly, pollen, honey. So what happens when they feed it with royal jelly, pollen, and honey? The growth, the development of the larva is stunted. A worker comes out. It's ovaries and other things are not well developed. Reproductive organs are totally not developed. So it is sterile. On the other hand, if the colony needs a new queen to be developed for various reasons, one reason is there's too much of population, too much of workers population in the colony. So it's like too many people in a house. You can't sleep, you can't do anything. So we decide to separate out. So for that reason, they will build another, make another queen, and they separate out. That's called a swarm. The other reason is the queen has become very old, very feeble. It cannot lay adequate eggs. It's not able to do its function properly. So they decide, okay, our queen is no good. So let's make a new queen. So that's called a supersessor queen. And the other one is emergency queen. Suppose now normal natural conditions, it doesn't happen. In beekeeping, it happens. When a beekeeper, by some fault, he kills the queen. So they recognize that there is no queen, so they make emergency cells and they produce new queens. So as I was telling you, 2 days they fed it with royal jelly. So they realize that they now need a new queen. So after that, what they do is, if they decide to make a queen, they will continue feeding these 1 or 2 or few of them royal jelly. Once they eat this royal jelly, this larva, which will take otherwise to convert into a pupa after 7 days, in another 3 days, that is within total 5 days, it will start pupating. So it is that fast. The growth is so rapid, and the size also is almost triple or 4 times the size of a worker. So the word royal, because it's making queen.
Right.
It's producing a queen. So that's why we use that word royal jelly. It's making a queen. So this royal jelly is what you see in the market, definitely produced by the mellifera bees, because our serana bees are small, the queen cells are small, so the royal jelly produced is also very small. So it is not a very viable product to be taken out from serana. It has not been tried. Maybe they would have produced on an experimental scale, not on a commercial scale. Whereas with mellifera bees, they produce a lot of royal jelly. It is nothing seasonal. If beekeeper there is able to get adequate pollen, he can do queen rearing. I have done that. So queen rearing, keep larvae in queen cups, so that they start producing royal jelly there, and you have a small syringe kind of a thing which sucks up, the royal jelly. So again, because there is no royal jelly, the bees will again produce and stock that much of royal jelly. So it requires a lot of worker bees, and either they use natural honey that is coming in, or they could even use sugar feeding to manage it. That is the royal jelly part of it. And this royal jelly is an exotic item, sort of supposed to be an aphrodisiac and things like that,
I understand. Okay, good.
So, and nowadays you hear about a lot of adulteration in honey.
Yes.
How can one detect it or make sure that what you're buying is good quality honey and not adulterated with sugar and such? In fact, today there was an article.
Yeah, today's paper.
How these Chinese something they add and you can't even make out. Even in the lab, they cannot make out.
Correct. See, what has happened is, right from those days when, crushed honey, basically squeezed honey was being sold, then they used to use jaggery as an adulterant. Then it became sugar. Now it has become even better. They're thinking of rice syrup, corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, etc., etc., etc. Lots of things, which, the rudimentary tests, they don't work anymore. There's something called, otherwise typically our ISI, or Agbar test or what you're supposed to do, you should have adequate TRS, that is total reduced in sugar, sucrose below 5%, TRS above 65%, things like that. All these parameters, they will pass. So what it will not pass is your isotope test. The carbon isotope, which you get from the nectar, is different from what is being produced by sugars or any of these syrups. So most of these tests are very expensive. So it's very difficult for you today to get that kind of test done for small lots. Yes, for big lots, for commercial enterprises and things like that, they do it. I'm sure all the exporters who are exporting honey from here, they have to get those tests done, and it's viable for them to do it because it's all 40 tons, 20 tons, one homogeneous batch. What we consume here is a question mark now, because probably, I don't know, I'm not sure. I believe it's just my belief. I believe that more of the spurious stuff is there in the market than the genuine stuff.
Yeah.
2 times to 3 times the original stuff. And it has been there. It's very difficult to get quality. So, to test for it, see, there are 2-3 things. One, generally what we do is sugar syrup and things like that, it's easy. You can just take a glass, glass tumbler, put warm water in it, and you can pour honey into it. If it is pure honey, it all settles down. If it is sugar syrup, it will easily get dissolved. That is if it is sugar. But how are you going to test these specialty syrups that these people have started producing now? They are as good as honey. It's very difficult. So the other parameter that, where we can still catch them is, if you are already used to it, for me at least, most of the time, the smell and the taste, I've been consuming it consistently from so many years. The moment you put it, 5 to 10% adulteration, I might not be able to guess, but anything about 10%, either it gives a different taste or the smell is not adequate or something. One of those parameters, we'll be able to say it is not genuine honey. Most beekeepers who have got a fairly good tongue to taste, will be able to identify it. But common person, it's very difficult.
How do the small manufacturers or producers of honey market their products?
Yeah.
How do they market?
Market it. Okay. Producers, beekeepers, how do they market it? See,
Small guys.
in the traditional areas, it's a very organized set. They've got beekeeper societies, so it is not a big problem selling it there. But now today, the honey societies have a problem getting honey. The beekeepers get a premium price directly from the consumer. See, with so much of traveling that is happening nowadays because of tourists going there into homestays and things like that, at the spot it is already being collected out, picked up by the tourists. So especially, there are some people who extract the honey in front of the consumer. They don't mind paying a premium, 500 rupees per kg. So things like that. See how innovatively they think the beekeeper can produce that much of, get that kind of remuneration. I used to keep bees on the highway in NH13, that is near Bijapur, on Sunflower. I used to extract honey and sell it there itself. I'm talking about 25 years back, I used to sell it at 100 rupees a kilo spot. If I were to do the same thing in bulk, it was what, 70 rupees. So produce here directly in front of all the people on the highway, the truck people, cars, everybody, per day we used to sell 20-30 kilos just like that. So it's how they can sell is, again, they need to think and work on it. Otherwise, there is always a system, because honey, unlike milk or any other product, is not a perishable product. You can't sell it, store it. You can sell it tomorrow. It's not going to destroy. It's not. See, honey is the only food
doesn't get spoiled.
Everything else spoils. Whether honey, a worm cannot eat it and destroy it. It can eat it and finish it, but it cannot destroy it. If it is a food grain, it can go. It can, a borer can enter. It can destroy it. It's spoiled after that, or a fungus can come into it. Honey, no. It itself is a fungicide. It itself is a bactericide. It can be used as for treatment of wounds. I've given some specialty honeys for diabetic people to use it on their feet with good results. Very good healing has happened. So it's a very good thing to apply on burn scars. On burns, basically it will not leave a scar on your skin. So selling honey is never a problem. There's so much of use for it and so much of demand for quality product. It should not be a problem. Even if you produce 10 kilos in your neighborhood itself, it will be sold. I have not found it as a problem where some beekeeper has said, look, sir, I have so much of honey. I don't know what to do with this honey. No, I've never found that. Yes, there has been problem with commercial beekeepers. To get that commercial price, it's all again about question of price. And again, what sort of honey? Because, rubber honey, it has its own drawbacks. Eucalyptus honey, it has its own drawback. Mustard honey, you cannot sell it in India at all. Because see, we have this concept where, the moment honey crystallizes, people think it is not genuine at all. They think it's all artificial. And mustard honey, if you allow it just for a little time, it will crystallize in the comb itself. It is because, the FG ratio is very low, and GW ratio, they call it, glucose by water, is also very low. Because high when it is thick and the glucose percentage is very high, it will very quickly crystallize. So these kind of problems are also there. So mustard honey, if I want to sell it in a traditional area like say Karnataka, they will not like it, and especially not our hill area people who have tasted that high fragrant honey, they will not consider honey that has no smell as honey at all. They think, what is this? There's no smell, nothing. How do you say this is good honey? On the other hand, if you go to Andhra, they don't like anything that has got smell at all. Andhra people want honey that has minimum smell. Andhra and Tamil Nadu belt, they like it thick. Whereas our hill area people, if you give it very thick, hey, why is it so thick? They'll ask, because they're used to that, saying that thinner honey, low viscosity honey. So all these factors are there when you have to sell, how different market. For example, eucalyptus honey is sold or accepted very well in North India. It is not at all Southern India. It's like that. But nowhere there is a problem selling.
Yeah. Mr. Santosh, so the next time we'll invite you is to do honey tasting.
Sure.
Hopefully that will be a physical meeting, and we can. We have wine tasting. We will do honey tasting. So
honey wine is also something that is being produced. Madira. The word Madira is because of honey.
Honey, correct, absolutely. Now, a couple of questions I wanted to ask you.
Yes, sir.
Is that, you said different flower pollinations have different flavors of honey.
Yes.
So it's like, even our, it's like we have a lot of background noise. Can we mute, please? So what we were wondering is that is it like the single malt thing, where these guys are only one flower, one flavor. If it is the orange season, it has an orange.
Yes. See, the citrus flower will have the same taste every year. So what happens? See, as I was telling you, I was talking to you about a very expensive honey, soap nut honey.
Correct.
People, Rita, they call it in Rita, soap nut, Antwala, Kannada. So honey is sold at a minimum price. I'm not talking about the maximum price. Minimum price of 1,000 rupees. The beekeeper will get 1,000 rupees. So when you're talking about the actual selling price, it can be even 1,500. It can be even 2,000. And every year it comes in the month of November. So the same color, same flavor, same taste. So depending upon different unifloral honeys have that marketing edge if you are able to sell it. But those of them who can't have that, because it also involves keeping high inventory. So those of them who can't manage, they just mix everything, sell it off as one brand, as one honey, just honey.
But basically, I want to ask you a very, very, very basic question.
Yeah.
Why are the bees producing honey other than?
Sir, we are all cheats, sir. They don't produce for us. They produce for themselves. I'll tell you how it is. See, they are very good. They are very smart. So what they do is, when there is excess flowers, they store it, they stock it. Why do they stock it? See, let's say in our country, the monsoons is the dearth period or the shortage period. Say
Rainy day.
Temperate country, rainy days, as you say. In temperate countries, it is the winter, when there is a lot of snow and things like that. So for us, when the monsoons are there, the bees, one, they cannot go out because of the rains. Two, even if there is some flower there, it would have got, the washed away. The nectar would have got washed away. There will be very little nectar, or it will be too diluted. So it's not worth the reward, to fetch it from there and all that. So they can't produce that much, or they'll have a shortage. So they store so much of honey to consume it later. Okay. But in this process of storing, sometimes right from those days, they have stored more. So when it was more, it's okay to take some. But then the question is, what we do is we take what they produce for themselves. And then what we do, when the shortage comes, we give them sugar syrup. We take the original stuff and give them the duplicate stuff. It's like, in the cattle industry, what they do, they give it calf milk replacers. They give the calf milk replacers. They take all the milk. And what does the calf drink? It drinks milk replacers. We are ultimate con people, I tell you. We will take from everybody.
Human beings.
Human beings, yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you really got our minds fertile and pollinated. 25 of us, at least today, have been honey trapped by you.
One last question, President.
Yes, please.
There is, from whatever I could understand, the window for them to produce honey is very limited, is it? In terms of it's only one month that they can produce, or
No.
something that happens through the year?
It all depends. It all depends. Let me give you a few examples.
Just to add, if it is in Sirsi area, what are the probabilities of a beekeeper being able to produce honey through the year?
Through the year, not possible. Even in Sirsi, not possible. Because there heavy rains will be there. So through the year, it is not possible. 1. 2. After the monsoons, also it will not be possible because the bees have to grow. They have to improve their strength, the population. So the first honey flow generally in Sirsi is in around November. Okay, the communist weed will be there, Eupatorium. And this I was telling you about this soap nut that comes in November, and a few other trees, at that time they'll flower. That is all. So the first honey flow will be in November. Again, December, there's a small gap. Till February, not much. So end of February, March, first week of March, if the season is good, Kuntanerle they call it, kind of jamun variety. It starts from there, goes on till about end of May. All this matti, tare, the terminalia species, basically, the terminalia family. So till that time, we have this window of March, April, May, 3 months, solid honey flow. And once the rain starts June, again, nothing will be there. So it is not throughout the year. No, you have one small season and one big season. Even the bees would not be storing honey if they were able to get nectar throughout the year.
And how do we extract it without, killing the bees?
See, what happens, we have 2 chambers, one above the other. Okay, the above one is like your attic.
In this boxes which we provide.
In the box. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So the lower area is the family chamber, where you live, where the bees live, where they work, all that. And the upper area is the storage area. So whatever honey they have to store, they store on the top.
Attic.
The attic. So what we do is we have a top opening. We take out the lid, pick up the frame from the attic, shake the bees there itself, take out the honey, keep the empty frame there. So this was, they'll suddenly see that everything is gone. Again, they'll go and collect and come. That's how.
Amazing. But natural extraction from the hives and all that is no longer viable.
Natural only, what I told you.
Okay.
Otherwise,
hives are inside the box, basically.
Yeah, hive is the box.
Hive is the box. Okay. Wonderful. Great. Fantastic. I think you have captured our imagination.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions from anybody else? We still have a couple of minutes.
Would you like to see any photographs?
Sure. Is there a screen share available?
Yeah, we'll try work on it. How do you do that?
Let me ask 5 minutes extra permission from the general body for extending the meeting,
Give
please.
me a minute, I'll do it.
Yeah. We will give you 5 minutes.
Yeah, sure thing.
Mr. Santosh, can I ask you a question when you are setting up the screen share?
Tell me, sir.
See, I am very fond of honey. You
Okay.
know, I have a sweet tooth, and I have gone bringing honey from so many different places, especially forest areas and all that. To be very honest, some of the best honey I have tasted is from Joyda.
Yes.
Dandeli belt. They say that is from Card Jenu. It is not regular Jenu. Card Jenu. So, my question, I think, has a little bit of relevance because we are trying to enable one particular community in beekeeping. In Joyda, there are tribals who do this as who do this for their livelihood. Would we encounter any such particular tribes in Sirsi, Alapur, Siddhapur side who who compete, who do this for a living? Just like in Joyda, because in Joyda, the tribals live on, they make a living out of honey.
Okay. So in that belt, one of the largest honey collecting tribes, as you say, is that Siddhi tribe. They are very good. Is I used to take tender there, for forest tender to collect honey. It's not moving. Do this.
I don't think they can see it.
You are able to see the video?
Yeah, we saw the solar water heater.
Okay, then you see it's working. You just make it work. Just a moment. Anyway, we were talking about Joyda, that Siddhi. The Siddhis, they're the tribals there. They're very good. They, in the nights, they climb from one tree to another tree, like, some adventure, In fact, I have been in that kind of expeditions, in Dandeli, where we have collected honey in the middle of the night. And it's a very interesting thing. I'll explain it to you for understanding. First what they do is they throw a stone and a small thread into one tree, climb up the tree, like, using that rope. And then from that smaller tree to the tree that has got the honeybees, which will be a huge one, they throw the same thread and put a big rope on it. And they move from tree to tree.
Wonderful.
You can explain this first, Santosh, the box, no?
Yeah, that's right. I'll see. I'll just pause it here. 1 second. See, that was pollen.
I just have to speak.
Yeah, that was. See, you saw that here. The bee that is entering the box.
Yeah.
Sitting on its legs, 2 small white packets.
Yeah.
So that is the pollen that the bees are collecting. So you can see it on the legs.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that is the bee pollen. That is when you're talking about pollination. In the process of collecting all this pollen, they move from flower to flower. So in the process, they also pollinate. The bees produce that much more pollen, wherein a small portion of it goes for the pollination. Most of it comes for the bees. So this I've kept 2 boxes on the rooftop.
This is in Bangalore.
Yeah.
And how will they know that there are these boxes? They'll figure it out. Or you have to create some fragments for them to come.
We keep the bees. Along with the bees, we take the boxes and cake. Just by keeping a box, it doesn't work. We have to keep.
That's what I thought. Okay, I thought you will be attracting them with some
No,
fragments.
no, that is possible. A different kind of a thing. If you put an old comb and allow it to, spoil there inside a bee box, it produces a kind of a smell. It becomes an attractant.
Attract.
Colony, when it is looking for a new place, it will come because of the smell, and it will settle in the same box.
Okay.
Move it a little forward.
Box.
So where do we get these kind of boxes?
Yeah, it's available. A lot of people sell it.
Box.
See, it is building a new comb. It's very cloudy, so I could not do a lot of work. It's comb.
They don't sting you.
See, if you observe, I'm handling it very calmly, very gently. If I rough handle them, they're on my face.
How many bees would be in one box, Mr. Santosh?
A few thousands will be there. In this actually small colony, at least 2,000.
Oh.
It's more or less one beehive on each of these sticks what you're pulling out.
Correct. No, it is called combs.
Combs, let me say, okay.
This whole thing is called a colony.
Okay.
See, that's called brood. Bottom is brood, on the top is honey.
Correct, okay.
The top 1 inch of it is honey. See, the color is different.
Correct.
What you see is the brood, that is the larva, pupa, and everything.
Right, okay.
What is the genesis or the reason for that particular shape, the octagonal or hexagonal shape? That any particular reason for that?
See, the frame is made. You're talking about the cell.
Yeah, the cell. All of them are geometrically perfect.
Yes, they are master engineers. They understood that it is one of the strongest structures.
It is the strongest, yeah.
So, because of which, even if there's a slight wind, see, I transport these bee boxes, they don't break.
I understand.
Keep it in the scooter in the front, and if I bring it from one place to another place, it doesn't cut and break. It can hold. So when there's more honey, it makes it thicker. They are master engineers. See, if you had observed in the earlier part where it was building the comb, there was a long thread sort of a thing. The bees had made the measurement,
Right.
See, when I was pulling it out, actually it was making a thread.
I understand.
Measurement, and then accordingly they'll start building the cells. Continue, put it back here.
Got it.
So what do you do if a bee stings you?
That's why I keep a little longer nail and a little finger. I scratch it out. I never use 2 fingers to pull it out.
Oh, okay.
When you use 2 fingers to pull it out, what happens? The venom sac will always. You'll be squeezing the venom sac, putting more venom into your body. On the other hand, when you scrape it out using your nail or a knife or something like that, very little, whatever has gone in. The rest of them will be removed out.
Okay.
I thought you had a vaccine.
Or an ointment or something like that.
You make out the queen there. It's got bigger abdomen, bigger thorax on the left.
Okay.
Can you see it here?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Amazing.
So that is the queen.
They all seem to be our pets.
No, if you handle them gently, they're also okay. Otherwise, they can become very vicious. In fact, this weather is very bad today. Cold. I was not in the mood to unnecessarily disturb them.
This was done today, this video.
Yeah, today morning. Yeah.
Oh.
Just for this thing.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll get something and show you. See, here you can make out the brood.
Yeah. Beautiful symmetry.
I don't know whether you can make out inside some cells. You can see like a rice grain. I'll show you a picture of it.
Yeah, somewhere you could see that. Yeah, you could make out. Yeah, in some hex cells. Yeah. Left side. Yeah.
Larvae, is it?
Left side of it, you can see some. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here you can see like rice grains, inside.
Correct. Yeah.
Those are the eggs. Even that, if you closely observe, you can see all the eggs. They have, fallen down, parallel to one another. They are sleeping on the bottom of the cell. They are all in one particular pattern. It's not haphazard. Did you notice?
Yeah.
See, for example, you can see my cursor.
Yeah.
They're all down. All the cells, all the eggs.
Okay, good.
You can zoom it and see.
Hold it. See, here you can see larvae. Can you see it?
Yeah, yes.
See, in the C shape.
Yeah.
C shape. So that is the egg. These are the larvae.
The pupas are already out.
Pupa is this one. All this is pupa.
Which one?
See, all the sealed. We call it sealed brood.
Sealed.
In the bottom. See, this is open brood. This is sealed brood.
Okay.
On the top is honey. This is all honey on the top.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Wonderful, Mr. Santosh.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there any other point you want to make, or should we move towards the vote of thanks?
If there's anything else you could ask me.
Fantastic. I think we were all mesmerized by our program. Thank you so much, Mr. Santosh. Let me invite Jay Suri, who is going to be our future beekeeper of the club. He's going to possibly keep all the bees together in the international service. So may I invite him to propose the vote of thanks, please?
Thank you, Mr. Santosh, for that wonderful insight. Incidentally, I must, we earlier mentioned that what we heard was honey to our ears, so to speak. We heard you say one more thing, which was doubly honey to our ears. And that is that you said that the Siddhi tribe in particular are very, very good at beekeeping. And that is precisely the tribe that we are engaging along with the Sitsi Rotary Club in order to try and take up this on a sustainable basis. So I think that gives us a double reassurance. More than anything else, I think one of the major wonderful learnings from your talk today, it's quite interesting how there's been a good understanding about division of labor and that they are social insects. We in Rotary are also very much sort of social insects. We come together, we try to build a project together. Hopefully our projects will be as symmetrical as some of your honeycombs. So it's a key thing. We have, of course, learned a lot from this session. And our sincere request to you would be that as and when we get involved with this project, we will definitely need a wise counselor, because we are doing it purely from a community or a social objective. None of us are beekeeping specialists, although we have one person from the area who's fairly experienced in this field and has volunteered to sort of lead us through on this whole thing. But I think with your vast experience, it is something which we can count on. Last but not least, this is just food for thought for some of our Rotarians also. We have every year a program which we call a vocational visit. And the idea is to just see some new operation. We have done things like we have gone to a biscuit manufacturer's plant. We have seen an automobile manufacturer. We went to Toyota. We have gone to wine manufacturers. Somewhere it will be wonderful to actually see an apiary, how the honey is, distilled, collected. You mentioned about on the highway. So that is something which I would request our vocational committee, anyone from the vocational committee who is here, to think of this as our vocational plan for either this year or the next year. So with that, thank you once again on behalf of Rotary Club, Ms. Santosh.
Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure speaking to all of you.
Given us a great encouragement. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It has been my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Suri.